When I built the fortress, I thought I was preparing for a war. I didn't know it would become the last version of a world that no longer existed. It's been more than 2 years since the first scream echoed through the empty streets of America. 1,000 days since the fall. And somehow, we're still here. The fortress doesn't look the same anymore. The walls once made for defense now carry marks of life. Vines creeping over concrete, wooden balconies, solar panels shining through the dust. Smoke curls from chimneys at dusk. Laughter sometimes cuts through the wind, thin but alive. What began as a refuge of fear has become a fragile settlement. We call it Haven Ridge now. Not a fortress, not a bunker, a home. The first summer after the winter of ash was harsh but kind compared to what followed. With the help of Meredith, the teacher, and the doctor couple, we turned what remained of the garden into farmland. The children became our workforce, their small hands planting, watering, hoping. We learned quickly that soil alone wouldn't feed us. The earth was sick, gray, cold, robbed of its strength by years of chemical rain. So we made compost from scraps, built greenhouses with plastic scavenged from ruined towns, and dug irrigation trenches that shimmered under the mountain sun. It took months, but the green came back. Tomatoes, corn, beans, small victories that felt divine. Amelia often worked beside me in silence. Her hands were rougher now, her face leaner, but there was light in her eyes again. Sometimes I'd catch her watching the kids play near the water barrels, and for a moment, I'd forget the world outside our walls. By the 5th season, the fuel began to run out. The generators, once the heartbeat of our nights, coughed and fell silent. At first, we rationed what was left. Only the freezer for medicine, only one light tower at night, only when necessary. But eventually, even that was gone. The silence that followed was both terrifying and sacred. Without the hum of machines, the nights were filled with whispers, the sound of wind through cracks, insects returning, the pulse of life reasserting itself. We learned to live by the sun again. Kurt and Ivy restored 3 of the old wind turbines. We found a rhythm: charge by day, survive by night. Mason said it felt like stepping back into history. Maybe it was progress, not backward, but inward. The community grew. Every few months, new survivors stumbled to our gates, gaunt, scared, carrying everything they had in their eyes. Some we turned away, others we welcomed. We created rules, not out of fear, but necessity. Every newcomer spent 3 weeks in quarantine near the outer field. We built small cabins there, isolation huts. They ate separately, spoke through wire, worked under watch. It wasn't cruelty, it was survival. One of them, a young woman named Tara, arrived with her brother and a story of a train that still ran between the planes. An automated supply line powered by solar grids, forgotten by the military. It sounded like madness. But madness was often where hope hid. By the 8th season, the fortress had become a village. Children were learning letters again. Meredith's school grew from a corner of the dining hall into its own wooden structure. The blackboard was a sheet of metal painted with charcoal. Their books were handwritten copies of old ones. At night, when the wind howled through the mountains, she'd tell them stories of the old world, about airplanes, oceans, and cities full of light. Some of the kids didn't believe her. To them, the apocalypse wasn't a fall. It was simply the world as it always had been. Amelia often said that was the saddest part. that the new generation wouldn't mourn what they never knew. The dead still wandered, though fewer now. They were slow, brittle shadows of what they once were. Some had been frozen through winter, only to thaw again in spring. We no longer feared a single one, but a herd. That was another story. In the second year, one came from the valley. Hundreds of them, drawn by smoke or sound. We saw them crest the ridge like a black wave. We rang the bell, a hollow metal drum that echoed through the hills. Everyone knew what it meant. We didn't hide, we prepared. Mason and Elias set fire to the trenches, the air filled with smoke and the scent of burning oil. The dead stumbled into the flames, shrieking soundlessly. Archers on the walls picked off the ones who made it through. When it was over, the field was a graveyard of ash and bone. We buried what we could. The rest the wind took. After that, we reinforced the gates again, this time with logs thick as telephone poles, bound with iron. No more steel, no more machines, just wood, rope, and will. Wood grows back, Samuel said. That's more than we can say for fuel. He was right. Our world was shrinking to what we could grow, repair, or make by hand. We began raising animals again, goats, chickens, even a few sheep. The sound of them brought strange peace. For a time, it felt like balance. But balance doesn't last. In the third year, the climate began to shift. The summers burned hotter. The rain came later. Crops withered faster. Rivers pulled back. We dug a new well, deeper this time, near the forest edge. For months, it gave clean water, until the taste changed. Metallic, bitter. Samuel tested it with what was left of our chemical kits. His face went pale. Contamination, he said. Something seeped into the ground. We sealed the well, but it meant rationing again. Baths became a luxury. The greenhouse misting stopped. And slowly, the earth began to dry around us. One night, Tara, the woman who spoke of the solar train, came running to me. I saw light, she whispered, on the northern ridge. Not fire. Light. Electric. We climbed the old watchtower before dawn. And there it was. Faint, flickering, artificial. For 2 years, we'd believed we were alone in this corner of the world. That faint glow broke that illusion. Amelia looked through the scope, silent for a long time. If someone has power, she said, they'll have hunger too. Mason wanted to investigate. If they've rebuilt something, he argued, we could trade. Grow again. But I'd seen what power does to people when the world ends. It doesn't unite, it divides. Still, curiosity is a kind of disease. It eats at you slowly. By the 900th day, the children were taller. The older ones helped hunt. Some had never seen a city. They asked about cars, about music, about ice cream. Meredith answered gently, weaving truth and legend together. Sometimes at night, I'd hear them laughing by the fire. The sound felt like ghosts of a world that refused to die. Amelia and I had grown older, lines around her eyes, gray in my beard. But we were still moving, still breathing. That counted for something. Then, one cold morning, Kurt found something beyond the eastern woods. A drone, military grade, half buried in the dirt, its solar cells cracked but still blinking. The memory card inside held only one file, coordinates, hundreds of miles east, and an emblem burned into its casing. The same emblem that once marked the quarantine zones of the U.S. Army. Under it, a single word: reclamation. The discussions lasted days. Was it a trap? A message? A warning? Tara swore it meant hope. If the military's rebuilding, they'll need people, she said. Doctors, engineers. We could help them. But Mason didn't believe it. Reclamation, he muttered, means control, not rescue. We argued under candlelight until our throats were dry. In the end, we did nothing. The coordinates stayed locked in the drone, sealed away like a secret we weren't ready to face. Still, sometimes at night, I catch Kurt staring at the horizon, the small radio clutched in his hands. Listening, hoping. On the 1,000th day, we gathered in the courtyard. The children planted a small oak sapling, the first tree grown from seed since the fall. We called it the tree of the first dawn. The wind was warm that day, the sky clear. For a moment, it almost felt like the world was healing. Then the radio crackled. Not static, not whispers. A voice. This is Reclamation Zone 4. Transmission test. Survivors respond. Coordinates locked. Extraction begins at dawn. The courtyard froze. The children stopped playing. The adults looked at me. Kurt turned the knob, eyes wide. Joel, it's real. Amelia's hand gripped mine. Or it's the end. The voice repeated, clearer this time. Extraction begins at dawn. We stood there, surrounded by the fortress we had built, by the lives we had saved, and by the ghosts of all we had lost. Outside, the wind carried the scent of rain and something else. Smoke. I climbed the wall and looked east. The horizon glowed red. Not sunrise. Fire. And through the haze, a shape moved, long, metallic, gliding across the fields. A train, solar panels glittering on its roof, lights flickering in the mist. Tara gasped. It's them. But behind the train came movement. Dozens, then hundreds, shadows dragging through the smoke. Not survivors. The dead, drawn by the sound. The same mistake we had made once. Mason chambered his rifle. Well, he muttered, guess they found us after all. I looked at Amelia, at the children behind her, at the fortress, our fragile world of wood, hope, and memory. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel fear. Only clarity. Because survival was never the end of the story. It was only the beginning.